What is up? Welcome back to another episode of First to the Floor. We are joined by a very special guest as we try and wrap our head around the NBA draft amidst the champagne and beer over the past couple of weeks. Ben Pfeifer, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. As I said before, congrats, guys. I know it's an exciting time for all of y'all Celtics fans. And the draft is probably just like, consolation prize at this point. You're not like stressing out like other fan bases. But thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. The draft felt way more important last year, I'll say that for sure. But I know I can probably speak for Jake here. I love the draft. It's just super fun, you know. I always convince myself anyone the Celtics draft is going to be a multi-time All-Star. So I'm totally looking forward to it.
I mean, they've got a pretty decent record, so like it's not the worst idea ever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's like kind of the biggest question for Brad Stevens left is like he's the GOAT. The only thing we're not 100% sure he can do yet is draft, because like the only draft pick he really made so far is Jordan Walsh. So the jury's kind of out so far.
Far too early on that one.
Yeah. I guess I'll ask you on that, dude. What were your Jordan Walsh thoughts prior to the draft, if you have them?
I was a big fan of Jordan Walsh. I liked that pick a lot. I think it made a lot of sense for a very deep team like the Celtics to pick a guy with pretty extreme upside on the defensive end, but would need time. And I think that's possibly going to be in the cards this year for how they go. But he had I watched him a couple times in the G League this year, and he always looked pretty good, at least doing the things that he does with regards to like tons of energy and defense. And there were some good driving moments. But yeah, I thought Walsh was like solid late first guy. I think the Celtics were a good landing spot. And I will say I do believe in him long term. So
So do we. Yeah. Well, yeah, like, you know, I believed in Gershon Yabusele way too long and all of these.
Zizic.
Yeah, Zizic, big Zizic guy. Yeah, well, I mean, like, if you're going to be a fan, like, of a team, like, why not believe until, like, it's really time to stop believing, you know?
If you're a fan of a team and you're not just, like, way too in on all of your picks, like, what are you doing? You know?
Exactly.
Right, yeah. I still think James Young can give us minutes, man. I'm telling you. So, Ben, why don't you kind of give us a little bit of rundown of how long you've been covering the draft and maybe how your approach has changed as the years have gone by, as you've seen more drafts?
Yeah, so I've been covering the draft at least seriously since probably like the 2019 cycle. So this is going to be like my fifth or sixth draft, really doing content. I've done a bunch of stuff. I've written in a bunch of different places, made videos at a bunch of different places, did a little team side work, and now I'm back just making content. And you said like the things that have changed over the years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good question of specific lessons. I think I've learned to value like advantage creation and scoring a lot more than I used to do, because even if you're like a really talented player in a lot of other ways, if you can't score, it's really hard to get on the floor. I've come to value things like youth and feel even more. Like young players tend to break out, or early breakout players tend to be better. Really smart players tend to be better. I don't know if I've made any massive changes in my philosophy, but you know, just little things. Picking up on trends, guys who I got wrong. I think some of my big early fails, like being high on guys like Jarrett Culver or Killian Hayes, which were obviously not unique opinions, right? Sure. But I think part of the big issue with guys like that, especially at the top of the draft, which we're not going to be talking about today, was the inability to like create and score. And even if that's not your main thing, you pretty much got to be able to do it. As I think a team like the Celtics kind of forces every single one of their players to dribble and pass and do perimeter stuff. And I think there's a reason for that, you know?
Yeah, like going through draft stuff for this team, it's hard and funny because I'm like, but all of our players can dribble, pass, shoot, and defend at a high level. But no one that I'm looking at pick 39 can do that. Like, how is that going to work?
Yeah, it's like, what do you want? Yeah.
What do you mean Ryan Dunn can't shoot? Come on, man.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of at the point. That's why I kind of wanted to talk a little bit like more broad draft stuff as well, just because like a lot of it, you know, feels kind of, for someone who's not a big draft person, it feels like there's like, just a randomness to it. Like obviously there's, even the guys at the outside of like the top 2-3 picks, the hit rates of those guys that end up like on the same team for their second contract is like shockingly low. But when you're picking at 4th overall, it feels like you're just guaranteed to get a guy that's going to be there forever and going to be a multi-time All-Star. But and you're like Josh Giddey was just traded a couple of days ago. Like there's another guy who was 6th overall, who has moved on from his first team. So like just accepting that like you never know kind of what's going to happen. And then obviously there are just some teams that are better than others. The Celtics have drafted pretty well. I know Danny Ainge had a couple of like late misses but like generally had a pretty excellent record.
Yeah, and I think another big thing that I've learned and I've just like picked up on more is something that you get is how much of a patience game the draft is. And I think that's definitely something that the Celtics know. And they were patient with Jaylen. I think especially they're patient, obviously patient with Tatum, but Tatum broke out really early. Whereas
that was easy.
It's hard to. It's rare that you're going to get instant returns. And even if prospects don't work out on their first team and their first contract, even if it wasn't like the quote unquote right pick, that doesn't mean they're not going to be good players or that they weren't good prospects. Like I think back to my first draft, like 2019 that I covered, I was super high on Kobe White, who for like a couple of years wasn't really looking like it was going to be anything. And last year, like boom, he breaks out, looks like a sub All-Star level player. So it's like, year 4 or 5. I think most teams could generally benefit from more patience, which is part of why I think teams like Celtics and OKC and other of these, like in Denver, honestly, teams like that who are really good franchises tend to like be patient with the players they draft, even through ups and downs. I think that's definitely an important consideration and something that, in the case of the Celtics, they've definitely shown over the past decade or so that they're willing to draft players that might not be willing to contribute right away. And might be worth it long term because of that.
Yeah, and Neesmith is the guy, right, that we weren't patient with, but then he still kind of broke out this year for Indy, But so like that's a hit for a draft pick wise.
Thank you guys for Neesmith, by the way.
Yeah, dude, you're welcome. You're welcome. He's the best, man.
It did work. We were believers. I mean, Spoonie was like building a freaking castle on top of.
Should see the shrine in my bedroom. Yeah.
But do you have like your crown jewel draft take? Like you were high on a certain guy, or low on a certain guy that you feel vindicated for?
The one that I always think of was being really high on Tyrese Maxey, which wasn't like wasn't like a crazy unique opinion, but I think I wrote an article back in like 2020, like the spring of January 2020, where I said he could be the number 1 pick, which obviously wasn't even close to happening. But I think you can make an argument that he could be in that conversation for a redraft. Probably not going to be over Anthony Edwards and maybe even LaMelo, but I think you can really argue that. Trying to think of what are my other ones. This isn't necessarily like an evaluation. I mean, I like this player, but you mentioned Giddey earlier, and I went on a Thunder podcast before that and like predicted that they were going to draft him, and they did draft him unexpectedly. So that wasn't as much of like a calling my shot on a player being good, more than like a calling my shot on a pick happening. I'm trying to think of anyone who was.
That's even more impressive, honestly, because Giddey, I remember, was mocked at like 13, 14, 15 range, and him going at 6, everyone's like, "Holy shit!" So, dude, you nailed that.
I'm trying to think of anyone who I was like low on that didn't hit. I mean, like. I'm thinking of all like a lot of like quote unquote draft Twitter ones. Like I was pretty low on Wiseman, who didn't.
I was going to ask about Wiseman because that seems to be like, actually, that's a question that I want to ask you. So like draft Twitter, quote unquote, like, how do like you'll hear some people on national pods and be like, people on Twitter think they're so smart, like they could, like the GMs in the NBA are so good and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I feel like I could be the GM of the Nets and do as good of a job. And so when you talk about like drafting capabilities of teams, like the Suns have been like pretty. They've been rumored to not even have a drafting department.
Right, like they've literally been outward about not caring about the draft, and I don't think it's like we're smarter than like GMs, like people on Twitter. But like a lot of people have been hired to front offices, like and have worked in front offices. A lot of my friends, myself included, at times, and like that there are a lot of GMs that we know are like bad either because of like nepotism or just like we know their track record. It's like anyone in any industry, there's going to be brilliant, good people, and there's going to be dumb, not so good people. And I think it's that way in the NBA as well. There's plenty of brilliant scouts, right, that are like the ones in the good front offices. Plenty of ones that don't really know much. And I also think another thing that I always think about is we have the privilege of not having any other considerations to draft with, right? Because when I'm thinking about prospects, the lens that I and most people, I guess, on the internet view it through is how can we make decisions that move the needle closer to a championship? Whereas there are other goals that franchises have and GMs have and owners have, whether it's like reaching a certain level of wins or making the playoffs or selling tickets or building this kind of roster, right? It's not always about like they take this player because their scouts think that he's the best, where it's like maybe the Warriors take James Wiseman at 2 because he was really good at dinner. Like, no offense to him or anything, right? But like, that's
great dinner, great hang, James Wiseman.
I mean, and like, there's validity to that,
Sure,
like,
totally, man.
Makes sense to want to employ people who are good hangs, but generally, I think. Yeah, it's not like I know there's plenty of players like quote unquote draft Twitter liked and missed on and didn't like, but I think people on the internet, draft Twitter is not a monolith. There are a lot of people with different. I think especially this year more than ever, maybe like opinions are just all over the place. But I do think it's like there's a lot of smart people who do a lot of really good work on here, and there are some And there are some people who have really good takes and know what they're talking about, and people who don't. Just like in any field or interest or whatever. So,
I'm very familiar with being one of those people who doesn't know what he's talking about, but still talks about it anyway.
I was super low on Davion Mitchell and Book Knight, which looks good at the moment.
Home runs right there. Home runs.
Book Knight, dude. Yeah,
I was too high.
That one.
I was too low on Scotty Barnes. I liked him, but I didn't like him as much as I should have.
He just signed his super
Yeah,
max?
he did just sign his rookie
max.
Yeah. Good for him, man.
Rookie extension.
Yeah.
Good for him. I mean, he's a stud. He's going to be incredible for the Raptors. Like, great player.
All right, so I think we might as well turn to this 2024 draft. You mentioned it there that there's a lot of differing opinions. To me, as a dude, and a lot of our fans, a lot of them are not draft experts, so they're going to be coming off a championship. It's a quick turnaround to get to the draft. This one seems all over the damn place. I see people with like guys at number 1, and then somebody else's board has them at 10, and it's like absolutely crazy. So like, if you were trying to summarize this draft, like, what's the elevator pitch for the 2024 NBA draft? And it does not have to be positive.
I mean, it's not positive. I don't want to like sugarcoat and lie, but I will say I think the main thing that I come back to is how flat it is and how samey the values of these prospects are. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why there's so much variation. There is a lack of high-end talent. There aren't really super like legit lock star prospects like most drafts. There are very good ones, and there are prospects who can definitely be stars but might have more risk, or prospects who maybe aren't going to be stars but might be a little bit safer. But I think because of like how close in value, like for example, I have like a I think my 8th and 22nd ranked players are in the same tier, right? So it's like even a team could take a guy who I have ranked like 20th in the top 10, and if it's a good fit and makes sense, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a good pick. Or someone or if someone who I have ranked really highly falls, it's like, okay, yeah, I understand that there wasn't really a spot for them. Obviously, there are some prospects who I'm like bullish on or not high on that I think regardless should go high or shouldn't go high. But I think just because of how close and narrow the ranges are and how like close everyone is in talent level, there aren't like huge gaps, and there isn't a ton of depth really either. At least to me, I think it falls off. I mean, most drafts fall off in the second round, but I think this one might fall off a little bit earlier than most drafts. But I think part of that is not just, I mean, it is this draft being weak, but it's also just how NIL and the COVID years have impacted the decision making of prospects on like the fringe in terms of staying or going. A lot of them will take the certainty and the money that comes with NIL versus taking their chances in the second round pick or two-way market. So that's my general thoughts on the draft. Definitely not strong. I
Sure.
think the general narrative about it being weak is accurate, I would say, and I think the general flatness is gonna lead into like a lot of craziness on draft night, which I'm very excited about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, like it's kind of good for the Celtics in that way. It's like, okay, well,
Oh yeah, I
someone
think
might
so.
fall down, or it's just like, we have this similar opportunity to draft similar type players.
It might just be as simple as waiting and see who falls to them. Like
Yeah.
betting that someone they like or have as a first rounder is going to fall to them. It's like, yeah, we'll just wait and see who falls, you know?
Yeah. So on the Celtics, so we have the 30th overall pick, and then we have the 54th pick from the Mavs, ironically. So a lot of people think that we're going to trade down to avoid having to pay like the guaranteed salary, considering we're over the apron and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks that, I'm just like, I wonder if Brad just like, and because of the type of draft it is, like, it sounds like people want to be moving down. Is it going to be easy to move up? Who knows? I'm not confident that's going to happen, but I'm not ruling it out. Spoonie, I don't know. You're there as well? Like if you had to guess, keep the pick, move up, move down. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more guaranteed money like a late first is than a top of the second. Obviously, a second you don't have to give them any guaranteed money, so there's more flexibility there. But I think that's a great point, Jake, about like if it's a flat draft, people are going to want to fall back in the draft and pick up future assets. And like if everybody's trying to do that, like that's going to be more expensive, or you might get like, yeah, here's a top 45 protected second in the 2029 draft. And it's like, well, is that worth moving down 4 or 5 spots? Maybe not. So I was pretty confident they were going to move down a couple days ago, but the more I think about it, I think Brad's just going to stay put and just take the pick at 30. Because look, you're only on the hook for 2 years anyway, right? You can just decline that third-year option if you want to get a look at that guy. But if there's an opportunity to move down that makes sense, he probably will. I don't think it'll be anything like last year where it was like 15 trade backs.
Dude.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. I think if I had to guess, it would be just stay put.
I think that probably is right, honestly. I could definitely see them trading down or maybe even out. You know, they don't have any good offers in the second round picks. Like, we'll just take future picks or cash or whatever considerations, and we don't like anyone. So I think either they trade out or they just stay and pick someone, which is, I think, maybe the most likely is just they stick it and take someone at 30.
Let's hope they just stay at 30, just purely for the fact that because the draft is 2 days, and that means that
they're going to do it
that happens.
They're going to do it for the content creators.
Yeah, please.
That's right.
We're going to be freaking streaming this draft, and we're going to be waiting for pick 30, and he's going to trade back, and then
that's kept me up late last year, Brad.
Yeah. I know. All right, so Ben, if you're the Celtics, what type of player is at the are you targeting like Celtics needs? What are you thinking from a Celtics perspective?
The Celtics obviously have the luxury of going in basically any direction they want because of their roster. If I were them, I would probably be targeting one because of the way the draft is going to go. I think there's going to be some higher upside projecty types, which, considering the Celtics have basically their whole rotation locked, like it looks like they're going to give Derek an extension. They could extend Hauser. Like they have Tillman's bird rights. They have most of their rotation under team control for at least the next year or two. So they don't really have to worry about drafting like a super ready team, which is a unique situation, I think, for contenders to be, because usually you see contenders at the back end of the draft where it's like, okay, we're going to draft an old guy who can play. But the Celtics, like, I don't really know if anybody on the board would really play who they drafted. Like maybe if they found someone in like a really specific role that they could use, like I'm sure, I wouldn't put it past Missoula and Brad and whatever to figure something out, but it's probably most likely that whoever they draft is not playing this year, maybe even next year. So why not then draft someone with some upside, with some potential? And I think that's kind of what they've been doing recently anyway. And like not only with like Walsh, but like a lot of the guys they acquired in the past, like Davison and like Yam Madar, I think over the past couple of years.
You're locked in, dude. There you go.
Yeah, Begarin.
Well, that's yeah, exactly. Begarin. Like that's exactly who I would like. Those are the types that I would probably want to target. And the main names that I think of in that range are Pacome Dadia, I think, or Pacome Dadia, who is
a couple people in the
a couple
in the chat here.
French wing. him and Nikola Duricic, and then Ulrich Chomchi, I think are the three like main like upside swings in that range that I really like, who maybe they don't become anything really, but I think the consequences for missing out on this pick are pretty low. So like Dadia or Chomche or any of these guys, I think.
Hi, meme. Daddy, yeah, good meme potential from Zach in the chat there.
Yeah,
I mean, Spoony, like, this is how I think of it. Ben, you're right. Like, the core is locked. Like, not only, like, the core, but the whole rotation. I think the question that they're going to, like, that we don't 100% know is, like, what are they going to do with Cornette and Tillman? It's like, because, like, if they know they're going to, like, just re-sign those guys, then it's, like, 100%, like, take high upside guys. But it's like, are we going to lose Tillman and Cornette? Because I think it's become clear to me, like Jaylen, Jayson, Derek, Drew, they're locked in. So basically, you just need big man stable. And that was like what this year. It's like, okay, KP gave us 5 playoff games. Horford's there. Luke Cornette gave us 1 big win in Cleveland. Tillman gave us a big game 3 in Dallas. Like, can we just get enough guys that can do something that can help us grab a win or 2 in the playoffs?
Yeah, so for me, it's a shame the draft is before Sam Hauser's option deadline. I mean, obviously, worst case scenario, we just pick it up and he's here for 1 more year. But if we knew he was extended, I would say, yeah, let's look for a big man, specifically a big man that can shoot, and hopefully we can teach him how to protect the rim, because that seems to be the issue with most of the bigs that can shoot in this draft. But if we have any indication Hauser's not going to be around for much longer, I would be looking for wings that can shoot, and they must be pretty confident they can teach guys how to play defense, because Hauser has turned into a legitimately solid defensive player. So those are the 2 ones for me, is that obviously, if somebody drops who you think is like, wow, this guy's clearly the best player left, you take him. But otherwise, I'd be looking for wing shooters and bigs, hopefully that can shoot, and maybe turn into a much worse version of Al Horford, because we're going to miss, he's irreplaceable. We're going to miss him. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You should have him for at least 1 more year.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So we'll pay some bills, and then we'll just go and talk about as many prospects until Ben
quits.
Go home and stop.
He just hits leave studio. Yeah.
All right. I've got to do a live one today. Okay. All right.
I know the list.
Yeah, you got the list. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is just heating up with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Brianna Stewart and Aja Wilson. You can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. As I've been saying, we couldn't quite bet more on Peyton Pritchard buzzer beaters, but Derek White blocks more was a lock on most nights. I made $10 on my first deposit and received a $10 bonus. If you have the skills, you can play for a shot at turning your $10 into $1,000. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Whew. All right. Okay. So Ben, maybe this who's do you have a dream pick for the Boston Celtics? I guess 29. I've got one. Based off a video of yours that I watched in my 24 hours of cramming.
Who do they make videos on?
You made videos on a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I was going to try to. Yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah. I think I'll say probably Dadia would be my main want for them. But I think, like I said, those and Dadia obviously has the advantage of being a possible stash option if he's willing to stay overseas. Obviously, not every player is willing to do that, and that might impact the Celtics' willingness to draft them. But those are advantages for, I think, Dadia and Duricic and what other international. There's a lot of good international prospects towards the top, but in the second round, there aren't really a ton of notable international guys. But I think Dadia being just a really toolsy shooting wing who has a lot of room to grow, but you put him in an infrastructure like the Celtics, I think that's a great place for him to thrive. He's going to be he's still going to be 18 on draft night. He's a 6'9" wing who shot almost 40% from three on catch and shoot threes. And he is more than that, though. A lot of it is just flashes, right? He's an extremely young player, but he's shown the ability to score off the dribble a little bit, to make some high-level passes with the ball in his hands. His defense, gonna need a lot of work, but if the Celtics are confident they can teach him how to play defense, right? He has great tools. He's super energetic. He plays with a high motor. He's always like running and moving and working off the ball. So I think overall, Dadia makes sense as a long-term upside swing, is not only someone who already, because of his experience playing in a pro league, he played for Radio Farm in the German league, which is the same team that Killian Hayes played on before he came to the NBA. Yeah, maybe I don't know if they're going to be avoiding that destination, but no, in all seriousness, I think his ability to like already play within an offense and be a good cutter and offensive rebounder and floor spacer is nice for his translation, as well as showcasing some of the higher end flashes with his burst and his on-ball creation and his playmaking. So as someone who needs to sit and needs the G League and needs more reps, and the Celtics are a place that he can get those without feeling any pressure to like contribute right away. There's even if like Hauser leaves, they could, and they want to go a different direction, like there wouldn't be so much pressure for a young guy like Dadia to contribute immediately. So he's probably my favorite Celtics pick, even though it's not by like a huge margin. There's like quite a few guys, so I could say are my favorite or who I would like if they made that pick.
What if they went? What you want me to, Daddy? Yeah.
Well, no. Well, like I want to know who you want, or you want to throw out the next guy, because you called Jordan Walsh last year.
I did call Jordan Walsh. He's not on our list. I love Jaylen Tyson personally, but he's got some serious issues. Yeah. Do you think he'll be there at 30?
He's mocked there, but I find it unlikely. The rookie scale consensus board, which is like an incredibly useful resource, just like putting together a bunch of boards and mocks and in one place to see what the consensus has him outside of the first round. But I find that unlikely unless there's some like serious like medical or character concerns. But I love Tyson. He is incredibly talented, and I think he's someone who could play sooner, even though I think he's still got some upside. He is one of the most talented scorers in the class, like legit wing size at 6'7", an advanced pull-up shooting bag, can really drive, great burst and explosion. The main issues with him just come like with consistency, where he shows the ability to make some excellent passes at times out of the pick and roll, but sometimes he just won't want to pass. Or defensively, he'll showcase the ability to slide his feet and really move, but then he'll just zone out for a couple possessions in a row.
Yeah.
Part of that, I think, is just because he was asked to carry Cal's offense. He had like a 30 usage last year. And something I think about with a lot of these guys who project to be role players is that they are never going to be featured as heavily in an offense as they were in college, right? Like there is a 99% chance that Jaylen Tyson is never going to be the offensive centerpiece of his team. So hopefully in that case, there's more energy and focus to expend on the defensive end. I think Tyson would be an incredible pick. I'm kind of skeptical he falls that far.
Same.
Even if that's like the mocks, I just don't. There are too many teams in that late first range, like the Pelicans, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Suns, that like make so much sense as a Tyson landing spot that it just seems, I don't know. It seems weird to me that a guy with his, especially even with his flaws, like the NBA loves these like versatile shooting athletic wings with like some kind of feel concerns. They've been all over that. So I don't think he's going to be there, but that'd be great if he was.
Yeah. The 6'6" guys that can shoot, dribble, and pass, like they don't fall out of the first round, really. So some of the defensive tape I watched of him was pretty concerning, though. I'll say that.
Okay.
But
it's like, I did like a defensive grading system for the first time this year, where I try to like weight defensive traits and come up with like a 1-number score. And Tyson was certainly on the lower end of that just as a result of his awareness and consistency stuff. But I do think he has the tools to improve. And I think Joe Mazzulla has earned the benefit of the doubt in terms of defensive coaching, to where I trust him to get the most out of whoever he gets defensively. Where I feel like with a lot of coaches, like offensively, I'm like, if you go to like a Spoelstra type, they're going to be good on offense. But whereas like I think Missoula's shown enough ingenuity to where it's like, okay, yeah, Tyson might not be a perfect defender and he might have a lot of mental issues and technique stuff, but I'm sure he can figure out a way to get something positive out of him. And especially if Tyson's a really good offensive player, you don't need him to be like a great defender. He can just be if he's just like a solid one, that's going to be enough for him to be a good basketball player.
Yeah, and something we didn't kind of talk about at the top though, but like these teams that are confident and should be confident in their development, or also just from the outside perspective, which teams are good at development and can put guys in places to succeed. Like the Celtics have kind of shown that with Hauser, or the Spurs developing Derek White, or the Heat developing everyone. And so like as opposed to other places like the Pistons, for example, over the past couple of years have not kind of proven to be able to put guys in positions to succeed for a couple of different reasons. My guy, you like him, Ben, from what I've seen. You've got him at number 17, but he's lower on a couple other places. Dayron Holmes. I watched your Dayton George Washington video, and he's the most Al Horfordy guy I've watched in the last 24 hours.
High praise.
All of us need to also accept that there will be no Al Horford replacement. That's just the reality. Is that it's just going to be a different universe once he's eventually gone. Even 38-year-old Al Horford this year was incredible. But yeah, so he's kind of, again, this draft's all over the place. Like you've got him at 17. I've seen other places have him like
the rumors 30s, are it's super weird because Duran was someone who like quote unquote draft Twitter people were like screaming basically since last year that he's gonna be like a first round pick, a top 20 guy. But it seemed really late for the league to catch on, and there are like tons of rumors that he has promises and stuff like Denver, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, right? So I would bet he's not there at 30. But if he was, he would be like the most perfect Celtic big who can. I mean, his whole like unique thing is he's an incredible dribbler for a big, not just someone who's like not someone who's just like putting the ball on the floor in transition, but is legit like running pick and rolls as the handler, doing dribble handoff stuff, making guys miss with his handle, and that combined with his solid shooting and passing and scoring on the interior and defense. Like, oh my God, he would be so perfect in Boston, but I would wager that that's not going to happen.
Go ahead, Sweeney.
Oh, I was going to say, do you buy the shooting improvement? Because he had a huge jump, I believe, this year in shooting. But I mean, his stroke looks good, especially for like a pretty thick 6'9" guy.
Yeah, his shot is definitely an interesting thing. I like the steady improvement year over year. This was obviously the first year he took any sort of volume of threes, but he's always been a really good like mid-range post mid jumper scorer, which is a nice indicator. His free throw percentage, while still not great, has gotten better every single year, and the fact that he takes so many free throws makes it harder to sustain a high percentage as well. I don't think he's going to be like an elite, like what if he shoot 38.6% this year? That's probably lofty for projecting his NBA percentage. But Holmes is the kind of guy who, especially because of how good of a dribbler he is, all he really needs is for defenses to close out to him. So as long as he can get to like 34, 35% on decent volume, I think that's going to be enough. And I think while it's not guaranteed, that's definitely an achievable realm. Like it would not shock me one bit if he was a shooter that defenses couldn't totally ignore.
All right. Well, that's a pipe dream. And Khalil Ware as well. Like, there's no way a guy that
not
happening.
Not
happening. Like, so a guy that's been firstly, shout out the First of Four Discord for helping us, or me in particular.
Shout out Discord.
Me too.
The Archangel put together a big list for me to kind of go from and go from there. So a guy that's been kind of polarizing in the Discord and in the chat just now, Bobby Clintman. Am I saying that right? Did I get that right?
I believe so.
Yes, he, NBL, after my own heart, in Australia. So, but like 6'9" wing, ball skills, moves pretty well for a guy like that tall, 20 years old. He strikes me as a guy. It's like how bad does he have to be to not work in the NBA? Like 6'9" and can looks pretty good with the ball in his hands in the short amount of stuff that I watched.
Yeah, I'm definitely pretty low on Bobby Klintman and have
Okay.
been for quite some time. I agree that he looks the part, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's but when that's the appeal, it's like, oh, he looks the part. He looks like he should be a guy. I worry about that, right? When you like dig into like the nuts and bolts of his game on both ends, what is there to like? He's like you said, 6'9", and a fluid mover. I think those are the kind of most important things that Bobby has, and I'm a huge proponent of like movement skills being really important and a predictor of future upside. Guys who can just like move really differently, have access to a bunch of different things that like other players don't have on both ends, but Bobby Klintman, to me, I think he falls in the same bucket of like Dadiet, Chomchik, Kaichon George, all these guys who are like big projects. But I think Klintman's upside probably just isn't as high as those other guys. So as a lower upside project, which kind of worries me, right? Because most of these guys who end up hitting, who are really good, like energy guy, really good tools guys, have some kind of standout trait. Whereas Klintman, like he's like an okay spot up shooter. He shot like 36% on catch and shoot threes, like on a like okay volume, solid, but can't really do much else. Defensively at this point is just totally a mess, which it isn't so uncommon for young players, especially playing in a pro league, right? The NBL is might not have like the kind of like athletes and raw talents, but it's a super physical league, really like well coached league, and at least from what I've seen in my years watching the NBL over the last couple of years. But yeah, I think just as a guy who to me is like a project wing without a ton of upside, there isn't really any special traits to bank on, because I think he kind of to me is like I think the NBA has become better at this, where in the past they would kind of take a quote unquote James Youngsy type guys who are just like these athletic wings who look the part, and we'll figure it out from there. When I think most people are kind of realizing like these guys have to be good at something or have to have some foreseeable pathway. And if Klintman is like a very legit shooter, I think he could be, a decent rotation player. Maybe if like he ends up getting really good defending the ball, his off-ball defense is a big worry to me. But like, he is like we said, he's a fluid mover. He's pretty strong for his age. So maybe there's something there. But I would probably just go in a lot of different directions. Not as much as like I think he can't be an NBA player. I think it's possible. Just that there are a lot of other bets I'd rather take. But he definitely is polarizing. If in part just because of his like low playing time, right? Like in playing in the NBL, and I think the NBL is always fun. And there's a couple other NBL prospects in this draft too, aside from Sarr, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, he's probably not falling.
Probably not. Unlikely. I'll bet that's not going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know a ton about Klintman. It sounds like if he puts it together defensively, which, yeah, you're right. Like, what is he, 18, 19? He's got the physical attributes. Like, if he figures it out defensively, and the shot.
Actually, he is already 21. He's older than I thought.
Oh, is he really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's also another.
He's washed.
Yeah. See ya, Bobby.
That's also another point. Again, it's like if a guy who's like 18 or 19 is making these kind of mistakes, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's happened. But at 21, usually players tend to be a little bit more developed in terms of their ability to like do the little things and feel the game. And not always, right? There are older players who end up working out, and a lot of times in the late first round, but it's not like a good sign or anything, right? It's like, it's not like I'm not drafting a player because he's 21, but I'm noticing that. It's a data point.
Yeah, for sure. So in our quest to replace Al Horford, right, we got Deron Holmes. The other guy I've been looking at, and I hate him. He's despicable even. But Kyle Filipowski kind of has, like, he can shoot it a little bit. He's pretty good on the short roll. Like, he's not great defensively, but there's some flashes there, especially if the shooting is real. And his jumper looks really good too.
I really like Flip, and I think like I have him in the top 20 of my board, and I probably would have taken him in the top 20 last year if he came out. He's just been a very good basketball player for a long time. Not like the most exciting, flashiest player, but he is a legit 7-footer without shoes who can dribble and pass as well as any big in this draft. And I think in the upper level of bigs in the NBA. Obviously, there's the Duke thing, the annoying stuff. People don't like whatever, but like
I know Jayson Tatum, pretty good Duke player, worked out all right for us.
There you go, right? Like he's very easy to hate, but also you're gonna love him when everyone else hates him and he's
100%,
right?
Yeah.
Like then you're just gonna that's gonna make you love him even more. But yeah, I don't think Flip is gonna be like a star or anything, but I think he's a really good bet to be a versatile offensive big in the league. And I think about the Celtics as much as any team in the league who values their bigs to be able to dribble and pass the ball and make decisions on the fly. And I think if Filipowski is a good shooter, which again, his shooting improved this year, up to 35%, which I think is a totally reachable benchmark for him. We're just kind of like Holmes. Honestly, there are some similarities, at least broadly, where it's like because of how good he is at dribbling and getting drive angles and passing, all you really need is for guys able to close out. And unlike Holmes, though, Flip will legit like take step back threes and like shoot off movement and stuff. Whereas Holmes is mostly just like he'll shoot the open ones he gets. Where Flip is like, I'm trying to create shots. Which I think at this stage, even if that's not going to be really part of his NBA role, it's a good sign that he can do that and he has the confidence to try that. So I think Flip would be an excellent, even like Al, but even like a possible Cornette or Tillman replacement as a third big this year. I think it always helps to shore up at a position where their main investment piece in that center is quite injury prone, even if he's incredible. Yeah, I think there's a couple bigs. The more we look at this, I mean, Holmes isn't going to be there, but even aside from Holmes, there are a good amount of bigs in this range. Like Holmes, I said Chomchi. I do
like Chomchi. Like I was watching your video
Mogo,
before,
even though he's not really a big.
Yeah. Someone in the chat just asked about. I think did the Celtics work him out as well. I've got Jonathan Mogo, right? Yeah, Celtics worked him out. So talk a little bit about him. We can go through some of the guys the Celtics have worked out.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Mogbo is super weird, because like you see, he's a 6'6" center who doesn't shoot, and it's like, probably not, right? But then you see he has like a 7'2", 7'3" wingspan. He dunked the ball more than anybody not named Zach Edey in college basketball, which is a pretty good feat. He is a ludicrous athlete above the rim, getting by other bigs and even wings with his burst and his speed. Super strong as well, and played a really unique role for San Francisco, where he was obviously like their post-up center, but he was also bringing the ball up the floor, passing the ball from the high post, and continuing this theme of the Celtics looking for bigs who can dribble and pass. That's Mogbo. And even though he's not a shooter, like doesn't really shoot mid-range jumpers, not a great free throw shooter, but Mogbo has taken a kind of a weird path. Like he was a JUCO guy who then went to Missouri State and then to San Francisco. So better comp every year and has gotten better every year pretty much and has expanded his game every year, which is obviously really important. And then defensively is, really like not the most amazing defense, like the most amazing defensive player of all time, but he is super toolsy, athletic, like generally pretty smart. So Mogbo is a guy who also has a wide range, right? Sure. Like I know there are teams early in the top 20 who really like him and would draft him. You'll see him in mocks in like the 40s, but I think he would be an incredibly good fit. Is a little bit older. He'll be 23, I think, in like December or something. But for a guy who I think could contribute this year in a limited role, would be an excellent pick if they want to go the route of getting a guy who can contribute, but also might have some like weirdo upside just because of his really unique, like statistical profile. He's a smart player. Oftentimes the players who develop into stars unexpectedly and like the, that you get in the second round, like or the late first round, like your Gobert, Siakam, Jokic, Draymond Green, they're all like unique players who it might not be easy to see how they succeed. But yeah, like again, older player, not perfect, clean NBA fit as a center, but really interesting prospect who I am fascinated by and I think would be an excellent fit in Boston.
Well, yeah, I think that's like obviously. I mean, Draymond Green. People have kind of stopped doing the like he could be the next Draymond Green thing because he's 1-1, which is
As they
smart.
should. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna say that's,
But
that's
like,
probably the right
but I
call.
guess like you think about the reason, a part of why that like the Draymond thing works so well. I mean, Steph Curry is like a game breaker in like the types of players you can use in different ways because he just changes the geometry of how your team can play basketball. And the Celtics are similar to that in a way, in that like, assuming Kristaps Porzingis is able to continue to keep playing basketball, it's like, well, you've got 4 shooters, one of which is your center who's protecting the rim and can space to 32 feet. So if you're plugging in a guy like Mogo, who's a 4/5, but like can be a monster on the boards, defend a couple of different positions, still keep the offense moving in like with just like feel. And then you put him into an environment like the Celtics that have creative, creative infrastructure with Missoula and Brad and all these guys. Like, I like kind of swinging on a guy with those types of tools.
Yeah, because like Mogbo is, for example, there are some players who, if you draft them or pass on them, like you pretty much know what you're getting. Like a Baylor Shireman, who I do like. He's the kind of player who's like, you know what you're getting with it. Or even like a player like Dalton Connect, like at the top of the draft, where it's like older wing shooter. If you pass on that, you know what you're passing on. Whereas Mogbo, like, he could be something much greater than that and much more impactful. And even if they don't necessarily work out, like the floor isn't as high, or I don't even want to say the floor not being as high, but is it not being as easy to conceive? It's like, I don't want to be the team that passes on Mogbo at 30 and he turns into like some weird high impact starter, right? So that's part of another reason why I like Mogbo so much.
It seems like the floor to me is almost like how the Celtics have been using Luke Cornett. Obviously, they accomplish the goals in different ways, but like he's a heady passer. He's really good in the handoff game. He's awesome on the offensive glass, and he's a solid defensive player. It seems like he could be that kind of guy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You got next.
All right. So I feel like we have to talk about this guy. I don't love him, but I think the fan base really, really likes Ryan Dunn. I think offensively he's not great, but also, man, Tony Bennett, Virginia, like they run a weird system. He doesn't allow those guys a lot of offensive freedom. So I wonder if he gets into sort of a more open floor, more spread offense. Maybe he can show a little bit more, but obviously, defensively awesome. But how do you feel about Dunn at 30 for the C's?
Dunn would be a fine pick. I think there would be guys I would prefer more. There would be picks I would like a lot less. I have Dunn like in that range pretty much exactly on my board, and it's my evaluation. And yeah, he is just such an extreme polar opposite player where I think Dunn is like, not maybe in terms of projection, but right now is clearly the best defender in the draft. There's not a player in this draft who's a better defender than Ryan Dunn. But I think on the inverse, there might not be a player who's worse offensively than Ryan Dunn. And I think for a team like Boston that asks a lot out of all of its offensive players, it's pretty rare for non-true centers to like exist in the Brad Stevens era Boston Celtics without being able to do stuff on the perimeter. But I think Dunn would be a worthwhile swing because he really is one of the ultimate like if he shoots types, where Dunn is like a really, really poor offensive player. My general comparison or thought about Dunn has been like a Jared Vanderbilt type who has some like real utility in certain matchups. Like he was chasing Steph Curry on screens in the playoffs a couple years ago. But then again, we'll just get totally played off of the floor either, really. But it's very rare for players who were that poor offensively in college, right? Like I do think there is some of the Tony Bennett has done basketball war crimes, and
yes,
like it's doing him no favors. That is 100% for sure. But again, terrible free throw shooter, not good touch indicators, not a willing shooter really. Is a okay passer, but nothing really crazy. If they feel confident that they can develop his offense and get him to the point where he's hitting spot up threes, because I can't imagine he's ever going to be like a real like driver, decision maker type. So it's a hard sell for me Boston wise, just because of the kind of offense they play. But I do think if they're just like through the kind of view of we're swinging for upside, we are looking for guys with special traits, then I think Dunn makes sense. I definitely see the I would say I'm pretty like centrist on him, and I see the positive and negative arguments. He's a very interesting player, though, I think, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, before we move on, before Jake throws out another name here, we've got to pay the bills. First of the Floor is brought to you by Game Time. If I were lucky enough to be in Boston right now, I'd be filling the void left by the end of the NBA season by getting into the Red Sox and the MLB. Game Time is authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I'll actually be heading up to Pittsburgh, about 70 miles north for me, to watch my least favorite English Premier League team, Liverpool, play Spanish Giants, Real Betis, and my buddy got the tickets on Game Time. He was able to take advantage of all the great Game Time features such as last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals. Easy to find and buy MLB tickets or any other ticket for every kind of event in your area. You can preview views from all of the seats in the venue, plus lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Well done, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed by your ability to do ad reads live. That's like as someone who has run and edited a podcast, I'm like, that's impressive.
Thank you. We're flying from the hip,
dude. Championship pedigree over here. Dude.
That's right. Yeah, we're printing it for the finals.
Yeah, it's an interesting on one. It's like two things. It's like, okay, do you draft a guy like someone in the chat said? Brissett can't shoot or score, but he was helpful in the regular season. He even helped us win game 2 against the Pacers, and then the Pacers kind of figured out the small ball thing after that. But like, he's not a playoff guy. Like, he's not going to be a guy that's ever going to be in a playoff rotation. Like,
and
Dunn
I think with guys like Brissett and I saw some like Jaylen, those guys were significantly better shooters than Dunn at the same age. Where one of the main predictors of shooting improvement, or I'll say two are I think most people know about free throw percentage being important. And like volume at a young age is really important. Being willing to get shots up, and it is quite rare for players who do not shoot to then become high volume, confident shooters. And just looking at some numbers, right? O'Shea's freshman year, he shot 7.3 per 100 attempts on 33%, 78.7% from the free throw line. Jaylen Brown at around 6 attempts per 100, very low percentages, 29.4. 65% from the line. Ryan Dunn in his sophomore year at Virginia this past year, 2.5 attempts per 100, 35 total attempts, 53.2% from the free throw line. So it's like, even though I do agree that like it's possible that he ends up being a shooter, like the level.
That just sounds like hope, though. That's just like I'm just like hope.
It's like the level to which Dunn is behind is like much more than a regular like bad young shooter, right? Where it's not like okay, this guy he's like 66% from the line, 30% from 3 on decent volumes. We can work with that. Or it's like no, Dunn is like a hesitant on open catch and shoots, which again I think it's possible. Like I wouldn't totally rule it out, and I think. Because of that, he would be worth a swing in this range. I want to make that clear that I think I absolutely understand the hype and like wanting to take it, but it's like I don't know. I would not feel good about betting on Dunn to shoot threes at any point at like a meaningful clip. It's just not. It's not something that our like that history suggests is going to necessarily be a thing that happens. So
yeah, well, like going back to that thing how we said like teams have different goals. The Celtics should be drafting guys that they want to play in the playoffs potentially, and like Dunn is not. I think he could be a regular season guy, but it's like I think we can find veteran minimums guys that can fill regular season eating eater's role similar to O'Shea Brissett. Whereas like this guy that I'm going to bring up now, Terrence Shannon Jr. I really liked his tape too. That guy, is he Jaylen Brown light? He gets downhill, attacks the rim.
A bullet.
He freaking takes some deep threes. Like he's got some confidence. I like his. I like the cut of his jib from the 8-minute highlight reel I watched.
Fun to watch in Maine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who I think he's probably similar. I see him at a similar value, at least to Dunn, where he doesn't really have any like special traits. Whereas Dunn, it's like has this genuine like game changing ability to where if he can improve other things, it's like, okay, this guy is going to be a legit impact player. Whereas Shannon, it's like solid in a lot of areas. Like it's like good open floor athlete, like really quick, has improved a ton as a shooter over the last couple of years, right? But one, as we kind of talked about before, is like quite old. I think is he
Yes.
already 24?
I think he's
Not quite.
Yeah,
he's
close.
He's about to turn 24, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like that's again possibly an indication that there isn't a ton of growing left. There definitely will be. 24 is not people's primes, but it is nearing that level. Where I think Shannon is kind of, this again comes down to the thing where it's like, if the Celtics think they're going to have a hole on the wing this season, then it makes sense to draft a player like Shannon, who isn't probably going to be a star ever, but might have the ability to come in, hit a couple threes, attack a closeout, play some solid defense. But if the Celtics are like, we don't have a spot for that, it's probably not worth waiting till he's like 27 to find out versus drafting a guy where it's like, would you rather have 27-year-old Terrence Shannon or like 21-year-old like Daddy or Kaishan George or Chomchi or something like that? So I think picking Shannon would, again, just like depends on what you're looking for and what your priorities are, where it's like, if they want to, I mean, he's not a house replacement just because they're like very different players.
Sure.
Like if they want a guy who can play on the wing sooner than later, then yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. But if they want to keep with their theme of going for maybe more projecty types who, if one hits, they really hit, then it's probably not the right option. But like I said, depends on your priorities.
I think Terrence Shannon is just like really fun player to watch, dude. He's a wild card, man. But I wouldn't hate him at 30. I think it would, if the shooting is real. That's
doing
what
one last mock draft for work, and I did actually give them Shannon at 30.
Okay.
All right,
Not
nice.
good.
Let's go.
Not that I just think it would make sense as like we're not sure about our depth next year. We'll just get a guy who we know is going to play. I do think his improvement over the years is also very notable, like since his days at Texas Tech, where he was really just like a super shaky shooter, like not a super confident offensive player, versus where he's come to at Illinois now. And yeah, I think it would, again, like kind of like like a Dunn or like some of these players. There might be players who I would prefer, or I think might be a little better fits, but it's not a pick that would make me scratch my head or really like I would yell at it all.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Do you think Shannon's offense is better than O'Shea Brissett's right now? And that's an impossible question to answer, I know, so you can dodge it if you want.
It's crazy.
Yeah, all right.
Probably,
dodge it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, that bar is pretty damn low, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And he played for us is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
He got
I think
600
he can
minutes.
definitely be a regular season minute eater for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely, and at the 30th pick, maybe that's what you're getting, right? You're like, okay, we just, we don't see a guy who we think is going to be a real playoff contributor. Let's get someone who we know we can rely on to keep the ship afloat when, if Tatum or Brown has some injury or, we're resting them or whatever.
Should we throw out a few? I know we're running low on time here. I don't know if you want to wrap up, but a couple names at 54, really quick.
I've got time for a couple.
Okay.
I've got
Come
time.
on, bit of rapid fire. Cool, there we go.
This is my guy. I'm not sure if he's going to drop to 54. Justin Edwards from Kentucky. That lefty stroke, man. I can't get it out of my head. It's so smooth.
He's generally projected higher than that. But
is he? Damn. But anyway, all right. Jake, who you got?
Well, they worked him out. But Spoon, you go ahead. Like I feel like you like kind of have your head around college basketball a bit more than me. Like I've just crammed for this test today. So like I feel like if you've got some guys, go ahead.
Antonio Reeves. Hey, he can shoot, when you're at 54, like, do you think there's any chance? I mean, I see him mocked pretty late or undrafted even. I mean, do you think there's any chance they target him that deep in the draft?
I think he could totally be there. And I think, Reeves would be a really solid pick there. He, like you said, is an incredible shooter. Not like the biggest guy and most athletic, but someone who can come off screens, hit some shots, make some basic passes, hopefully play some solid defense. Totally a bench swing that I would like. And Edwards, even though like I said, I don't think he's going to be there. And I'm definitely a little lower on him, but I think 59 would be a good spot for him because he is, he's fairly built. He has a nice catch and shoot jumper, solid on ball defender, is like a little bit older and lacking in like this skill in field departments, but as a second round pick, right? Just talking about more guys who can fill minutes on the wing makes sense as well. I see someone in the chat yelling about Tristan Newton, who I adore.
Yeah. Okay.
Please.
So I would take Tristan in like the top 40 or even higher personally. Like, I think it's absurd that he's being mocked this low as like obviously main reason is probably just being that he's an older guy, has been around a long time, but there are plenty of other old prospects who are getting pretty high looks and is good at basically everything. A good shooter, one of the best passers, one of the best pick and roll players, period, in the draft. Really effective driver and slasher, crazy smart player on both ends, incredible screen defender and ball defender, very, very smart player overall. He is someone who I think could legit be like we can fill playoff minutes with this guy in year 1 or 2. And I don't think that's something that I can say. One thing that this draft does have a good amount of, the small guards are pretty good. I mean, and Newton's not even that small, where I think a lot of these small guards who end up flaming out of the league are just like they don't have the size to compete. Or I think of like I don't know, like guys who I liked, like Malachi Flynn or like Cassius Winston, who super, super talented, gifted players, but just couldn't hang. Or even think about a guy like Pritchard, who was an older guard who succeeded. And I think a big reason for that is because he's always been really physical and strong and can hold up. And though Newton isn't like strong, he's like wiry thin, he's tall and long. And I think that has a similar effect. So he would for sure be one of my favorite picks at 54, I think. Who else would I like?
Harrison Ingram, I know the Celtics worked out, and you made a video for like kind of a point forward type guy, like nice feel, like slow.
That was
though.
like, yeah, I
slow.
made a Harrison Ingram video like 3 years ago. At least I'm pretty sure that's when I'm like after his freshman year at Stanford, and he has gotten a lot better since then, which is good. Where at this point he's more of like an off-ball wing type, but another one who I think at 59, like 58 or whatever, would be a monumental steal as someone who just should not be there, and might fall because he's a little older or not super athletic, but again, improved a ton as a shooter this year. Not the greatest indicators in terms of free throw, but like the volume is good. He's a great mid-range scorer, super smart passer, really smart defender. Another player who not only like can fill minutes on the wing, but I think maybe could be a playoff type player because of how smart he is and how skilled he is. And though this is kind of what we talked about with Tyson, but instead of going from college to the pros, it's from one college team to a better college team. It's like at North Carolina, they didn't really need him to ever handle the ball because they had a bunch of other good guards and great players, but those skills don't go away. They just kind of manifest in different ways. So instead of a guy like Harrison Ingram bringing the ball up the floor and running pick and rolls, it's like using his handle to score off of closeouts and second side actions and transition. And I think Ingram feels quite Celticsy to me because of his versatile offensive skill set. Another one who I don't think is going to fall. I would like to say something about Chomchi a little more.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Dude, because if they think they're keeping Horford and Tillman, man, this guy, like Robert Williams, like if we could draft Robert Williams, this doesn't exist because Robert Williams is perfect, but I like Chomchi.
Except his knees.
Except for the knees.
Yeah, we're drafting Robert Williams with functioning ligaments. Like that
Please.
But yeah, Chomchi is someone who they might have to take at 30, or maybe he'll be there at 54. I have no idea. I've heard that there are teams who like him who are picking in that late first range. I've also seen plenty of mocks that have him late in the second. So I don't really know where he's going to go, but he to me is one of the most intriguing upside swings in this entire draft. I think he is the single youngest player in the draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's not even, he'll be 18 when the draft happens still, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he'll be like 18 in like 6 months, which is crazy. Or he'll be 19 in 6 months, I mean.
Yeah.
Which is absurd. But barely, like, the deadline to be eligible for the draft, and he is very raw, right? Which comes with the part, but not maybe as much as I would have thought before watching him, where he's a really smart passer. And one of the things that I always like and appreciate about Chomchi is his willingness to try stuff and his kind of like fearlessness. I think the fact that he's so like inexperienced and raw helps that he doesn't know what he's not supposed to do. So he'll do he'll take tough jumpers and try to beat guys off the dribble. And oftentimes it's not working or looking good, but the moments where it does, it's like, holy shit, like that is really impressive. And of course, defensively is like the main selling point, where he has some of the best athletic tools in the entire draft. Not just his vertical explosion and like length, but his ability to move side to side, to kind of track back and forth, to like drop back and pick and roll coverages, and to slide on the perimeter. And again, someone who is like a Bruno Caboclo 2 years away from being 2 years away, right? Yeah. But with some of the most intriguing upside in this draft. I think for a team like the Celtics, too, it's like we've been good at developing players. We don't need our guy to play right away. Could be a really intriguing option to where, yeah, we just like let this guy sit in the G League and learn and, you know, hang on Maine for a while until we're ready to end up playing this person if they're able to. And I think he would bring a lot of the same elements that a player like Rob Williams did, that like above the rim finishing, some playmaking, some rim protection. Never really like perfect, but I think for a Celtics team, like,
he played goalie too.
He did play goalie,
which is so crazy, dude.
That's a terrifying thought of like a 6'10" guy with like a 7'4" wingspan or whatever. You probably can touch both ends of the goal.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
But it's like, again, for a Celtics team who, especially if he's there at 54, right? It's like, we're not going to play anyone who we draft. We might not even play anyone we draft at 30. Might as well take someone who we think could be a legit impact starter down the line. And I think Chomchi is that guy. And he's someone who I didn't really expect to like, to be honest. Like I'm kind of surprised that like he's as interesting as he actually is, because he's not just like a totally raw, clueless player who can't play and doesn't know what he's doing. It's like he has some feel and he has some skills. But I would be totally fine taking him at 30. I don't know if they will, but I think that'd be totally fine pick.
Yeah, you'd be bonkers to pass him at 54, I think.
Oh,
like,
sure.
The upside is just so crazy.
I doubt he falls that far. I mean, even if he's been mocked there, it's one of those guys where it's like, I doubt it.
Somebody's going to, take the flyer on him for sure. I'm kind of out of names here, Jake.
All right,
I'm
because that's good. Let's let Ben get rid of it. Unless you want to throw any more out. Like, it's up to you, man.
Let's do it.
I saw someone in the chat saying about AJ Johnson, who I do like, and I feel like I can pander to your NBL bias.
There we go.
But
yeah, Jayson Tatum's dad, I think, coached him. So there you go.
I think AJ Johnson is the second best NBL prospect in this class, which isn't saying a ton, just because I don't love
because you hate Bobby and obviously he's not Saar. So
I mean, it's like all the other guys are like Bobby is like Trenton Flowers, like Montes the Vicious, like a bunch of fringy guys. But I think AJ of these fringy guys is definitely the most interesting, where he is like a tall point guard with incredible movement skills and has shown the ability to pass the ball out of pick and roll and to honestly defend a little bit above the level that I kind of expected him to. I didn't really love his tape in high school, to be honest. I'm kind of like, he's someone again who I'm surprised how much I like in terms of like a second round flyer, because he wasn't really that interesting to me as a high school prospect. But in the NBL, he got a lot better, like reading the game out. One of the things that he's really good at that I value is like keeping his dribble alive and keeping his options open, which a lot of young players are afraid to do or can't do. He's like super weak in the frame, needs a lot of work, but right, another like 19-year-old who's super mobile and can get over screens and stuff. Overall, so and I think it's worth noting, and this is something that's true for Chomchi as well, is both of them played really good in the combine scrimmages, which isn't everything, but I think people are kind of waking up to that it does kind of matter. Like you'll see guys like Jalen Williams, Christian Brown, Andrew Nemhart, who all dominated that setting. And though it's, one or two games, I think it's an interesting 1 or 2 games because there's no coaching or system or teammates to hide you. It's a bunch of dudes you don't know and have never played with, and a coach you don't know, and whatever plays you don't know. It's like, all right, just go figure it out. And AJ looked great. Chomchi looked great, especially considering the combine scrimmages are generally an older group, right?
Mhm.
And both of those guys are teenagers. So I think Johnson is like, I wouldn't want him at 30, but
Sure.
in the second round, I would very much be cool with that. And I think holding Bronny hostage would be funny.
Yeah. How's this for a comp for AJ? Like a smaller version of Jalen Johnson, just like athletic, long, good handle. And that's kind of about it right now, but there's something there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, just like someone who can
That's a
really
no.
like.
That would be great.
I don't know. I mean,
I
like,
don't mean he's going to be as good. I just mean from
like-
like a skill. Yeah.
I see your vision, right? Just
All right,
someone
thank
who,
you.
like,
Yeah, that was very nice.
well, I mean, there is a lot of value in players who are tall and can dribble, right? It's like, I don't know what else
Yeah.
you can do, but that's a super valuable combination of traits and something I think very, very, very worth betting on. I did have a bit where I would like early in the season, every time I did a mock, I would just give the Celtics Bronny because I think it's funny.
It is funny.
Yeah.
Come on down, LeBron. Come get him. Come get him.
It's so funny. I really do hope they take him in the second round if he's available. He's so hilarious.
I mean, that's that's a fun little subplot to the draft. It's just
It is.
the Bronny thing. Like, what's gonna happen?
And I think he's pretty solid. Like, it's probably a little better than he's getting credit for, but like still is like would be objectively hilarious if like the Lakers took him in the first round. Or, if, like,
Oh my
That
God,
would be
please.
awesome.
That'd be
Yes.
so good. I
Yeah.
love it.
right. It's like the biggest like franchise sabotaging move.
I know. JJ Redick, he's got his work cut out for him.
I don't think he'll
so-
oversee that one. I don't know if he'll approve of that one. I think he's probably got too good of a head on his shoulders for that. But that seems like a Darvin Ham type of move, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they release a Mind the Game episode breaking down Bronny James's draft tape. Before I see, I don't know, I see it. He could fit right along. You play the 2, play the 3. That would be awesome. Look, Ben, you've been incredibly generous with your time. Ben Pfeifer on Twitter, on YouTube as well. Just like a variety of really good hoops content. I think the first time I really got turned on to you was after the Tillman trade. I looked up on YouTube. You had a Xavier Tillman is a genius video.
That is one of my like most viewed YouTube videos.
Yeah.
That's because the Celtics fans, baby. There we
Right,
go.
it's got like it got no views at the time, and then like once the trade happened, I'm like, oh my god, this video has like 8,000 views. What the hell? And so I'll have to make a video of whoever the Celtics draft and be like, this player is the next superstar.
Yes, it'll work. It'll
The next
absolutely
Jalen
work.
Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do adore Xavier Tillman though, and I
Yes.
also
same.
just want to express how much I love Jaden Springer, and I hope they pick up. his
Okay.
team.
Ooh,
All right.
Interesting.
All right. Well, that's good because I'm like, is he just not like Ryan Dunn?
Yeah, he's guard Ryan Dunn, but like
Yeah. He seems like
I
a
don't
good
love
guy.
him in
though.
that I think he's gonna be good. I love him in that I love him. Like,
All right. Yeah. Man. We saved him from the streets of Philadelphia and brought him in, and he's instantly become a champion. So we're happy.
Most of y'all can't say that. He's an NBA champion. Like,
That's right.
Yeah.
Champ. But yeah, Ben, Spoonie, it's been a pleasure. Ben, everybody go follow Ben Pfeifer. We'll have all of the details in the description. But yeah, incredible. Just a ball knower. And we need more of those.
appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Thank you for the chat. Thank you, everybody. Talk soon. Peace.
I love